We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Empire State of Baseball, episode number 61, September 25th of the year 2023, airing on Twitch, X, YouTube, powered by StreamYard. Well, gentlemen, It is a gloomy day in the end of September. We have a cold, I don't want to say cold, but it is definitely a gloomy fall, misty day out there. A good way to summarize the season. I do like little imagery, and this gives a lot of imagery because the Mets, the Yankees, and so far to start this very young football season, we could say the same with our Jets and Giants. This gloomy Monday night is the perfect imagery of New York sports at this point in time. Rich, how you feeling on this gloomy Monday?
Yeah, I mean, it is a damn shame that these New York professional sports teams allowed fans into the stadiums with the way these teams have played and this weather. I mean, what a way to start the fall when you were thinking like first official weekend of fall. You know, go down to Loretta Winery, go to a nice cidery, go to your favorite Source Brewery. Just really take in the fall and get this thing kicked off. Nope. Monsoon. You had hurricane weather, tropical storm. It was a garbage start to the fall, especially when we watch the television and watch our teams play. But Tom, how's your Baltimore Ravens doing? Since I don't watch football.
Oh, we were absolutely hosed by the refs 3 different times yesterday. Miss face mask, miss pass interference. Ravens should be 3-0. We're taking it up with the league.
Oh, no.
The Bird contingent is talking to the league about it. It was really a travesty what happened, and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, no, Ravens, and that's a game I thought they would have won too against the Colts. Andy Dalton getting their start for an injured Anthony Richardson, so Ravens couldn't get the win. But none of our teams.
Gardner Minshew, but yes.
Oh, Gardner Minshew. Oh, Andy Dalton. Panthers, I think,
yes.
Right? The Panthers.
Sure. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, a lot of rookie quarterbacks out this week and a lot of veterans filling in. But all 3 teams lost. Mets, Yankees, forget about them. They're done. Now we have the Giants, Jets, Tom being a Raven fan. And again, it doesn't matter which team, all with a losing weekend. How about the Mets getting swept in a 4-game set versus the Phillies? I know for the Mets it meant absolutely nothing. But it's just very fitting right now how we're seeing football and baseball blend together right now, transitioning from one to the other. Terrible start. But we do got a show tonight. We do have a lot of baseball to discuss, at least what's left of it, unfortunately. But I'll do a quick rundown of the lineup here. We have the Bronx is burning. We'll be diving into some New York Yankees chatter. Chooch is back with the pick of the week. This will be the last Chooch's pick of the week of the regular season. So let's see what the Chooch has in store for this final week as playoff talks are underway for a lot of teams. Queen's Gambit will dive into the New York Mets. Big announcement since we've last met 2 weeks ago with David Stern. So more to come on that later in the show. And then finally, Core Curriculum, where we'll have our buddy Core come on, give us some fun questions. It's always a good time when Core is on the show. But Bronx is burning. All right. We still have some Yankees baseball. And first time in what seems like a while, Yankees will not be in the playoffs for both teams, officially out of the playoffs as of this past week. But let's talk about the Yankees, all right? They defeated the Arizona Diamondbacks in the series 2-1 at home. 3-game set with the Blue Jays, 3-game set with the Royals. Right now, 2 games up in the AL. 2 games over 500, pardon me. 4th in the AL East. But again, first time they haven't been in the postseason since 2016. So have to defer to both of you. Tom, how does it feel right now being a Yankee fan? First time in 8 years not in the postseason.
Not great. You know, I've been on the record that I don't count wild card losses as postseason berths, so I think there's a couple of those in there. So I just don't count those as actually making the playoffs. That's my opinion, though. But yeah, we've talked about it. We've beat the dead horse that is the 2023 Yankees against the death. That this is a flawed team that has a lot of decisions to make to get better. And now they also just feels like a cursed team. You had the little bit of that hope, the glimmer. Jason Dominguez comes up, and then boom, Tommy John surgery. But the Yankees also have to lead the majors by far in position players needing Tommy John surgery. We've had Glaber and Didi also had Tommy John.
Yeah.
Aaron Hicks. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think another team has more than one. And I feel like the Yankees, I don't know if it's just bad luck, but man, it's just, I don't know. It just,
yeah, the melancholiness is in. And it's funny because you look at the Yankees last month here, Tom, and the Yankees actually played probably their most respectable baseball since the month of September even began. It's just, again, a case of it being too little too late, which we had talked about weeks ago on the show. A lot of the moves that the Yankees should have made to try to, bring in the youth and try to fade out those veteran players that aren't going to be part of the plan in the coming years should have happened the month before they actually happened. And maybe, just maybe, the Yankees would have had more of a fighting chance to crack that final wild card spot, but it just wasn't in the cards. I think if you look back at this last month, I think there's those losses to the Brewers hurt, because at that rate, the Yankees, if they had a fighting chance, they basically had to go near perfect, and losing those two big games to the Brewers when the teams ahead of them had winning weekends was the nail in the coffin. I know I'm mentioning something that was a while back, but it's been a while since we did our last show. But for the New York Yankees, now you look at the immediate future, and that immediate future usually comes with the front office. As we've seen in the past, a lot of baseball teams will figure out their whole coaching situation even prior to the award reveals in November. So will this spell the end of Aaron Boone? Did we see the last of Aaron Boone in those Yankee home pinstripes today over their win in Arizona, Tom?
I don't think so. I think Aaron Boone is going to be back at this point. Right. I've been on the record that I don't think he's been the greatest manager in the world, but I don't think he has been the issue for the reason why they are in the situation they are. It is the roster construction. And I think one of the biggest signs that might be the case is, I want to say it was a week ago or so, Judge was asked about Boone, and Judge basically said, I like Aaron Boone. I think Aaron Boone's a great manager. He's great for us. He sticks up for us. He does all these things, which we do see him do. He's famous for his rants and fighting with umpires. And I think the players want to keep him. And Judge is the captain of the team, and he's the mouthpiece of that. On the other side of the coin, though, I think it was over this weekend, they asked Judge what he thinks about the organization as a whole, and he said a lot of changes need to happen. Now, Judge can't fire Brian Cashman, but we also know that the Yankees are going to go through this entire audit in the offseason where they're going to audit everyone. And, Judge mentioned problems in the minor leagues, problems in the majors. So I don't know. I'm hoping just for big changes, because I think what has frustrated Yankee fans the most is just how this roster has been constructed. And even beyond that, just like the mindset they have. It seems like they've been kind of getting a little sloppy on defense. They've have a lot of these guys who are boom or bust. They're, always just trying to hit for power, not trying to just kind of get on. And I think when you see the more successful teams, I know batting average is is out of fashion, but they get on base, and the Yankees don't even do that. They used to walk and hit home runs, and now they're not doing either. I don't know. I think a lot of these scouted
players. A lot of these scouted players that were looked to be more dynamic than just boom or bust seem to not have a little bit of that versatility in the major league level. I mean, we've been back and forth on Anthony Volpe, and I think for the most part, I think a Yankee fan should be happy with what they saw out of Volpe in his first year, basically navigating past AAA to get to this level and doing what he did. You want to see that average go up next year, but outside of Volpe, you saw a lot of these players struggle. You want to see guys like Peraza and Pereira get into it. Wells hit a home run today. We want to see these guys still try to work their way through, but it sucks that we weren't able to see these guys kind of play to their full potential this year, and hopefully that breaks through in 2024. Now, Corey, I'll ask you. So, beyond Aaron Boone and making changes managerial, obviously you got to think about the player personnel. We did put up a poll earlier today of which person on the Yankees doesn't deserve to come back, and 50% of our faithful voted for Giancarlo Stanton. Do you feel the same way?
And I'll tell you what, with Giancarlo Stanton, a lot of times, in addition to Aaron Boone, he's one of the two scapegoats that the people keep going back to, saying that he's a big reason for the Yankee problems. And granted, we all know the contract. We've been talking about the contract since ESB was dawned. So we know about the contract. But you look at his season this year, 189 batting average. And again, I know batting average, like Tom was saying earlier, it isn't as luxurious of a stat as it used to be back in the day. When we were growing up, you're hitting a 300 average, everyone loves you, all right? That's not the case anymore, but 189 is not getting the job done at the major league level. I'm sorry, you're below the Mendoza line on the season. He's not going to top that for the season. OPS 692. We're talking about an absolute slugger who, when healthy, should be hitting bombs consistently. And again, 24 home runs, a lower total for him. Granted, he's only played in 98 games thus far, but a 692 OPS is not the OPS you want for your middle of the order slugger. I think Giancarlo Stanton, if I was going to say between Boone and Stanton, I would actually probably say Stanton myself. And not saying I have raving things to say about Boone, but I don't really have anything negative to say about Boone. And going back to the question you mentioned even earlier, do I think Boone is going to be back next season? I think it's also a coin flip, but I'm leaning towards he will be back next year. His contract expires after the 2024 season. So this is kind of a natural way to, if you really respect Boone, you respect him, he's an organizational guy, and if you're 50-50 on him, let him ride out. I know a lot of people do try to avoid that lame duck year, so they try to add on a little extension. I would not do that. I don't put too much stock into the lame duck, me personally. But I think it's a natural way. Give him that one last do or die year. Hope this year was a little bit of a fluke. See the kids coming up, make a few moves in the offseason, write it out. We'll see what happens with Boone. But in terms of that poll, I'll tell you what, I'm with the people. I'm going to say Giancarlo Stanton, because that's a guy that's supposed to be in the middle of your order, right there with Judge as your two thumpers. A 692 OPS and a batting average under the Mendoza line does not get it done for a $20 million a year player.
And I know we're going to have conversations over what could the Yankees do to move on from Stan. Because realistically speaking, I don't think the Yankees can release this guy. I think it was a lot that the Yankees made the move earlier in the year with Aaron Hicks and moving on from him and his $10.5 million per year at the time for another 3 years. That was a big move for the Yankees that we weren't expecting. For what Stanton's worth over these next 4 years, no, that's just not going to happen. We'll have to figure out a way, if there is a creative way that the Yankees can pawn off Stanton, even if it means eating most, if not all, of his salary, just to get something. You know, you could see something along the lines of how the Mets acquired Acuna for Scherzer. And I don't think Stanton's worth an Acuna-type player. But there could be a deal, you know, in that realm that we can touch on come the off-season episodes. One last thing with the Yankees here. So obviously we touched on the manager, and I do think Boone's going to be back here in 2024. It would be very unfair if this team decides to scapegoat Aaron, especially this would be his first postseason that he's missed as manager. Let's not forget the 100 plus win seasons he's had. In his first 3 seasons as manager for the Yanks. So I think it would be very unfair to scapegoat Aaron in that sense. Let's look at the general manager, though. Brian Cashman. Is Brian going anywhere? Do we think Brian will be back? Have we not uncovered enough dirt on Brian Cashman to relieve him of his duty as general manager here, guys?
No, he's going to be back. Another thing we've talked about ad nauseum on the show is they're not going to get rid of him. Brian Cashman's going to need to resign at some point, or they need to find a way to bring in another guy and you kind of promote him, make him some kind of VP of something else and let him have a cushy title and everything. But you really turn the reins over. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's Cashman's team.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with Tom. And I was mentioning before, too, that if Aaron Boone is an organizational guy, Brian Cashman is the organizational emperor of this team.
Brian Cashman is the organization.
Yeah, he is. He is. And he's got that contract. They gave him there was talks. If you were going to move on from Brian Cashman, the time to do it was last year. And a lot of the fans wanted it. I know our very own Chooch was a big fan of moving on from Cashman. He was devastated when he got that 4-year extension. but that was the time to do it. Not now. I don't think they do it now. You could make the argument, should they do it now? But they're not. I don't see them doing it now. If they're going to move on from anybody, it's Aaron Boone, and I don't think they get rid of him either. So it's going to be the same show as next year. Only thing you could hope then from that standpoint is, all right, you got to see the kids. Got some nice moments. Early part of September was fun when these kids first got the call. A lot of exciting baseball for that first week or so of the call-ups. But it's going to be a very, very important offseason for Brian Cashman. Try to right the ship. Again,
I think the Yankees need to make some decisions and take some medicine in the offseason. I think they need to figure out which of the kids they want to keep and which of the kids are going to get traded, because they can't keep all of them. They need to stop letting these kids die on the vine. You need to move some of them, get some prospects in return, or some major league players, or whatever you're going to do with them. And then if you're going to try to do something with Stanton or some of the other contracts like that, you need to make those decisions and make it happen.
And that's I think at the minimum there, Tom, and I can agree there, but I think this could be also an offseason where it's addition by subtraction. If the Yankees,
I'd be fine with
figure out that if the Yankees figure their 2024 team is going to be their core prospect players that we've seen play over the last couple of months, and then you're just subtracting some of these bad contracts, if you can try to find, and I understand he's had a good last month, but if you could try to find a home for DJ LeMahieu, that might be a good move. Try to figure out the Stanton thing. If they did those two moves, that's a successful offseason for the Yankees.
Yeah. And then do you just say, listen, this year is going to kind of stink, but we're building towards something at that point instead of just kicking the can down the road, which the Yankees have done for the last half decade.
Exactly. And you bring up a perfect point, too, with the prospects and letting them die on the vine. One of the best parts of Cashman's tenure more recently was that sell-off they had that led to that 2017 run. That 2016 sell-off, I thought he executed perfectly, Cashman. But what ended up happening, you had a lot of higher-end prospects. Clint Frazier is one. Andujar was in so many trade rumors at one point. Even look at a guy like Deivi Garcia. These are guys who are somewhat highly touted prospects where if you pulled the plug a little early, you could have got a good trade out of some of these guys. Instead, wasted away. I mean, Clint Frazier with the Yankees wasted away. Deivi Garcia, DFA'd. I mean, this is a guy that a lot of people are excited about. He got DFA'd. So I totally agree with you. Don't let these guys sit here 2, 3, 4 years in limbo where they're bouncing between AAA and the majors, where they're platooning, not playing every day. So it's definitely a big year in terms of direction. We could make the same case for the Mets, too, and we'll get into that in a later segment, too. But that's a very good point, because if you let the kids die on the vine, you're not only losing value in the prospect, but you're missing value on what you could have brought back in return.
Absolutely. And I think, listen, for the most part, I think there's a lot to be hopeful for some of these players. Even if the batting averages don't show it, even if the power numbers don't show it, you could see the talent in a guy like Austin Wells. You can see the talent in Everson Pereira. And Tom, if it doesn't mean that one of these two players are going to be in the Yankees starting lineup next year, or at least kicking the tires down in AAA for their bench time call up, maybe the Yankees do have to deal some of these players come the offseason as well.
They have to.
There's a lot. There's a lot that right. And there's a lot that Cashman has to consider. And as far as front office goes, if there is one thing the Yankees can do at the least, which I think easier than most people think, they need to flush out that analytics department this offseason.
Oh, yes.
Flush it out. That analytics department led by Michael Fishman needs to be cleared out. And I think that is a move that can be done. This team just needs to work on better analytics. I believe in the analytics. I believe that there's a way to success through your team's analytical department. It has clearly not worked for this team.
Mm-hmm. No, analytics. See, the analytics is a term right now that everyone is drawn to. Similar to average. We were talking about average earlier, right? Average 20 years ago, that was one of the king stats. Analytics now is what everyone is drawn to in Major League Baseball. And you rely on the analytics too much, and people forget there's a human element to the game of baseball. You have to understand the moment, who produces in what spots. I believe in clutch. Analytics does not believe in the clutch factor whatsoever. It does not exist. I think players do have a clutch gene or they have an anti-clutch gene. Sometimes the moment of the game is too much for a player. Sometimes they thrive on it. Look like a Madison Bumgarner, for example. Great picture, but the postseason lights come on and he's even better. I mean, he's unhittable when it matters most. And then some guys just cannot produce in the big spot whatsoever. So I personally think analytics is a tool that helps you build a team. And if you're a manager, you're a GM, you need to, if you don't leverage analytics, you don't deserve a job in today's game because that helps you put a team together. But from a managerial standpoint, that's only a tool to help you. It should not be making your day-to-day decisions, day in, day out, situation by situation. There's a human element to the game, and it's about finding the perfect balance between the two.
Yep. Thomas? Who knows Thomas?
No, still here. Garrett Cole's going to Cy Young. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen. If we're gonna touch on one good thing, I think that's absolutely number one. Garrett Cole. At this rate, it's his barring one of his worst starts of his career coming up this week. He's your American League Cy Young.
Unless barring him testing positive for steroids, he's gonna win this.
I mean,
if he has a 2-inning start where he gives up 10 runs, he's still gonna win the Cy Young. He would need to it'd have to be a spider tack steroid combo for him to lose it at this point.
And I'll tell you what, I'll be very happy too, because one, I did get him on one of my fantasy teams at least, and two, that was a prediction I had in our day one segment when we're doing the predictions. I said, you know what, I'm going with the guy who continues to put up good numbers over some of the younger hot names, and sure enough, he is going to be the Cy Young. So congratulations to Cole.
And in the coming weeks, we will review all of those predictions that we did earlier on in the off-season episode of season 1.5. We'll get into that in a few weeks' time. But for now, let's touch on Twitter or X or Twitter. We are live streaming on X, Twitter. We have 2,300 followers on X, Twitter. If you're not one of those followers, shame on you. Be one of those followers today. We're closing in on 2,500 by the year end. We want to keep growing this thing into 2024 and beyond. And make sure to give us a follow on all our personal handles, as well as ESP Podcasts, of course. At G Gory for Corey, at T Waspel for Thomas, at Rich J Rivera for myself. And he's not here tonight, but give Joe some love too at JR Pugs as well on Twitter. A lot of the multimedia that we have on Instagram, you also see on Twitter and X. So check us out, give us some love, give us a follow, share with your friends. All right, Chooch Pick of the Week. It's the final time that we get that beautiful leopard blanket up here on our screen. So with that said, let's turn it over to Chooch for the final Pick of the Week for 2023.
What's up, ESB crew? Chooch is back with Chooch's Pick of the Week, and this is the final Pick of the Week, which means you won't get to see the blanket anymore. What a shame. But also that means the season's coming to an end. And I'm going to make this a special Chooch's Pick of the Week to end the season. I'm going to go with the matchups down in the AL West. To begin this week, starting tomorrow, Mariners versus the Astros. And then right after that, Mariners play the Rangers. I'm just going to make this one a fun pick. I'm going to have the Mariners winning the series versus the Astros, winning the series versus the Rangers to take the AL West. What do you guys think?
All right. So this is what I love about Chooch, right? So Chooch is 7-5. After we miscalculated middle of the season, he's 7-5. He is putting his winning record on the line. Mariners lose these two series, he's 7-7. He's at a 500 record. So I give Chooch credit for not going with the safe pick. He goes with the crazy pick. I mean, this West Division of the American League is legitimately the Wild Wild West. No one knows who's going to win between the Stros, the Rangers, or the Mariners. It has been juggling back and forth for the last 3 weeks. Gentlemen, do you believe in Chooch? Will the Mariners pull off the miracle run at home, by the way? They're at T-Mobile Park for the rest of the week and top the Astros and the Rangers for the division lead. What do you got, Tom?
How far are they back? Let's see. They are 3 back in the division. No. I mean, no. I'm just going to say no. I want them to. But yeah, 3 games. I know that they can control it in their hands, but I say they go 500 and they're a wild card.
Yeah, and I do think the Mariners end up being a wild card team. It's crazy with the Rangers. I thought the Rangers were going to completely fall out of it. I predicted them to be the team that misses the wild card just a few weeks ago, but the Rangers are playing a little better. Astros and Mariners are shooting themselves in the foot, both losing 3 straight within a half game of each other for that last wild card spot. So I'll roll with Chooch just because I want to see a different team. Enough trash cans. Let's get some Mariners in there for the third wild card spot, but not the division.
I got Mariners beating the Astros, but ultimately losing to Texas this week. I mean, how better of a way could you have sketched this out for the final spots in the American League West and for the wild card that these 3 teams are going to be pitted against each other over the next week? I mean, that is insane, and this is why you gotta love baseball at the end of the day. You're like, you would have known that the Mariners still would have had a chance with the way they started off the year. They started off with such a disappointing record. People thought they were going to sell at the deadline. They sort of did too. People remember Paul Sewald got traded.
Yeah.
They acquired Josh Rojas. They didn't really have a big pickup during the trade deadline. The Rangers were looking like the best team until their pitching fell apart. The Astros had some big injuries, and then now those guys are back, and they look like they're still the legit threat that we all know they are in the American League West. It's crazy end to the season in that division.
Yeah, and I
it doesn't help. It doesn't help that the Mariners got swept by the Rangers last weekend.
Yes.
No,
that definitely doesn't help. And I would have told you what, if you would have said in the final week of the regular season, and we have 3 divisional teams within 3 games of each other, one's going to take the division, one of the 2 is going to get the wild card because the Blue Jays are going to get it. It would have been the East. I'm going to say the NL East too, between the Braves, the Mets, and the Phillies, where the 3 teams I thought would have been in a dead heat for first place in the division, all 3 teams. And the Mets completely let me down in that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it still could be. I mean, it still could be a 3-headed monster in the AL East headed to the postseason, or a 3-headed monster for the AL West. It's going to happen either way. But it's crazy to see that, and the fact that they're all playing each other is insane as well. So looking forward to watching those games, and a shout out to Chooch. Good luck to Chooch, by the way. Let's see if he either can improve to 9-5. Or will he be a 500 team? Who the hell knows? We'll see. I'm going to give him credit twice, depending on how he does. All right, but thank you, Chooch, for all your picks this year for 2023. We look forward to 2024 and beyond for Chooch's pick of the week. But from that point, Corey, I know we have a few of our fans checking us out here on Twitch, but how can their friends check us out on the app?
Yeah, go ahead, download the Twitch app. This is the app that started all for us. I know we're on 3 different services now, but download Twitch and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball. You'll get a notification on your phone every time we go live, whether it's in one of our usual weekly spots or sometimes in the offseason. We pop up as needed for any big news. So you will get that notification as soon as we go live. Find the link tree located in both bios on Instagram and X or Twitter, whichever you prefer. The link is there. Download Twitch and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball.
Twitch, near and dear to my heart, right, Thomas? So, Savages in the Bronx, a little leading off action back in 2021. So,
Yes.
Love throwing it back to those classics you could find on the tube somewhere. But yeah, Twitch, give us a follow and some love over on Twitch. All righty, let's give some love to the New York Metropolitans and eulogize the Mets season, which I feel like we've eulogized multiple times throughout the year. But the Mets season also just as done as the Yankees. Corey mentioned earlier, the Phillies came in. I'm sorry, actually, the Mets went into Philly, and the Philly fans went home happy each and every single night for a 4-game sweep at Citizens Bank Park. The Phillies, of course, I don't know if they've clinched the playoff spot yet.
They did clinch. I think it's clinched. I think they're 5 up right now in the wild card. So technically not clinched, but they're going to get the wild card.
All right, well then, there you go. Phillies back into the postseason again, and hopefully for the faithful, they get to see their luck happen twice. Obviously, they're the World Series opponent of the Astros last year. But we're not talking about the Phillies. We're talking about the New York Mets, and we're talking about David Stearns. When we did this show last, which it feels like a lifetime ago, David Stearns was our topic of the conversation, mainly being why David Stearns. But that why has turned into reality, because even though it's unofficial, Everybody and the mother and Andy Martino have reported that David Stearns will be on his way to Queens to take the president of baseball operations job, I believe, right? The PBO, not the GM. So David Stearns will be in Flushing once this season is done. Corey, what is your thoughts of Stearns, the Stearns era?
Well, listen, my initial thoughts are happy because we're going to have a new era, hopefully, of Mets baseball. The last couple of years of Mets baseball, I mean, last year was a fun year, 101-year season. It came to a crashing burn in the wild card round, but the years leading up to it were terrible. The first year with Cohen had all the excitement, the hope. What happens? Right as your team is kicking off opening day, your GM gets caught for a sex scandal with lewd pictures and whatnot. He's gone. By the time the trade deadline comes around, your interim GM gets a DUI. He's gone. He takes a leave of absence. All of a sudden, Sandy Alderson, who I think was really just brought in to be a mentor for Steve Cohen to help get him through that approval process in the early days of building an organization, he ended up doing more day-to-day than he ever expected he was going to have to do. Then they move on from Sandy Alderson. He finally retires. Billy Epler comes in. I've had a lot of strong words against Billy Epler. I do give him credit, though. I thought he had a very good overall trade deadline. If you're going to do a sell-off, he did a good job at doing a sell-off. So I give him credit where credit's due. For David Stearns, what I want right now is long-term stability, because we cannot keep having this where every 1 to 2 seasons we're talking about turnover. I want a guy who's going to set a vision and be a long-term stable piece. And we could debate Stearns, what's the lore with Stearns? And we had a whole discussion about it a few weeks ago. Honestly, all I'm hoping now is for hope. Just give me some hope. I want stability. I'm tired of this constant turnover. And I think part of the reason why they brought in Billy Epler, one, because he did have some experience with New York. I know he was with the Yankees a while back in a lower role. But supposedly him and Stearns have a very good relationship. So Epler is probably going to stay on as the GM, but Stearns is the one setting the direction. If he's going to tell Epler what to do, I trust Epler to get a contract done. I mean, he negotiated a lot of these big free agent deals. I mean, granted, when you have a big checkbook like that, it certainly helps. But I could trust Epler in day to day. I don't want Epler setting my direction, and I hope that's what Stearns can come in and do. The Brewers, again, have they won a title with Stearns? No, they have not. Have they been more successful with him? Yes, they have. So I just want to build some stable success. Give me a playoff team year in, year out for half a decade. Make the World Series, hopefully win a couple of them and see what happens. But I'm just hopeful because I'm tired of this constant turnover and negative vibes that come from the front office. And it's been going on since the end of Sandy Alderson's first tenure, then with Brody coming in, and then all the stuff I mentioned before at the start of the Cohen era. Just give me some stability, and I hope Stearns is the man to bring that stability.
Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We don't really know. I think I made my feelings on that both on Twitter and our show recently. That, I mean, maybe he's the guy, but I don't think he is walking through the door and he's the Messiah. So we'll see. He has a good track record in Milwaukee, but I don't think that necessarily means that he's going to be the greatest president of baseball operations in Mets history. But we'll see. Best of luck with him.
See what happens.
Is it a weird look? Is it a weird look that the reports have gone out while the Brewers are in a playoff push, while they could potentially be a team that goes deep into the playoffs, potentially a World Series appearance? I don't think they will. But I think it is weird that even though the teams haven't made an official announcement yet, and they shouldn't, Passan, Martino, it's all known. Like he's on his way to Queens. Is this a weird look for Stearns to take this job while his current team is in a playoff?
It seems like these teams have been like in a PR war for a couple years now with the trades and then the Stearns stuff. It feels like these teams don't like each other. At least the front offices don't like each other. I don't know how the players feel. And this seems like the next step of it, of like I'm assuming the Mets side leaking this out that he's the new going to be hired for this role, just to kind of keep thumbing it in the face of the Brewers. It's a very weird rivalry going on.
Yeah, no, it's a little interesting for sure in terms of that rivalry. Definitely is a little uncomfortable. Like, it's definitely a little bit uncomfortable there too, but as long as there's no tampering or anything involved, but it just seems assumed that going back 2 years ago that this was always a guy that they had in mind. And I think this year David Stearns is just like in an advisory type role. I think he stepped down from GM duties specifically, so that helps. The fact that he's not actually leading the Brewers at this exact moment. I just don't want to hit any tampering charges again, because then what's going to happen? If there's some sort of tampering charge here, we're starting off with the same negative vibes that I've been hoping to avoid with this type of hire. I think behind the scenes, the Brewers know that once the contract expires, that Stearns is walking out the door. They've already tried to do a negotiation. The Brewers rejected it. They made him write out the contract. But guess what? That contract now expires finally within the next week. And I think most likely it could be by the time we're doing the show next week. I think it'll be a couple of days later. Will probably be a formal announcement from the team, a press conference maybe later in the week or the week after. But the thing with Stearns is, too, you're going to want to get all of this stuff done prior to the start of the offseason. You want to have all of your front office stuff done. All right, you got your president of baseball ops in Stearns. The next question is Billy Epler going to be the GM? I say yes. I think he will be, but we have to see. We have to hear from Stearns himself to see if that's the guy. Then you have the decision with Buck and the rest of the coaching staff. And ideally, you want to at least have that interview process started and in the latter rounds as free agency kicks off. I know sometimes it doesn't always align perfectly. If you're waiting to interview candidates from a World Series bound team, then you have to wait to interview them after that, the whole ordeal ends. So we'll see what happens, but this is something that cannot wait. So I do expect that sometime next week, we will have a formal announcement and a formal press conference for David Stearns, and then we'll start to hear the next directions for the team.
So, damn, Corey. So, you panned over the Buck thing, like if it was like nothing. But it seems like the way I just interpreted that, Buck Showalter's all but gone.
I think
out of this position as a manager.
I think he's all but gone, and it's crazy because last year I loved everything Buck Showalter did for this team. I thought he was the right guy for the right team. He brought a sense of calmness with the team. I loved him in the press conferences, and he did a lot of things right, a lot of little things, knew the rules, got the team to understand the rule books a lot with some good base running decisions. The replay, the Mets led the league in replay over turnover reversals last year. That's been a weakness of the Mets this year. We could talk about the rule changes this year. This year had a ton of rule changes. Absolutely terrible job handling. It didn't help that half the team was in the WBC, and the WBC played by the old rules, so that led to a little bit of a slowdown there. But the Mets got criticized for not being good with these new rules with the pitchers and the pitch clock and all of that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But I think Buck's all but gone. Granted, could he still be back? Yeah, I think he could still be back. But if I'm going to put money on, I would certainly say no. I definitely think Aaron Boone is far more likely to stay with the Yankees than Buck Showalter is with the Mets. I just don't know who that guy is going to be with the Mets. And we've heard of Counsell with the Brewers, but would Counsell want to make that jump from one team to the other to stay with Stearns? That I'm not sold on. Could it be a guy internally like Chavez? Maybe. I like Chavez, well-respected baseball guy. We'll see what happens there. Do they go the Beltran route? I personally don't think so. I mean, Stearns has no connection to Carlos Beltran. Carlos Beltran had connection with the New York Metropolitans, not David Stearns. And if you're bringing in a president of baseball operations, he's going to bring in his guy. So maybe he likes Beltran. I don't know. I have a feeling it's not going to be any of the names I just mentioned. I think it's going to be someone we don't know. It could be someone else in that Brewers organization.
You know what? I think I know the perfect person to ask that question to, because I know we're going to let him on in just a few minutes anyway for his own segment known as Core Curriculum, our trivia segment here on Empire State of Baseball. Well, we have an empty seat here at Empire State of Baseball for tonight's episode. So to pass over that question, Andrew Corey, also known as Core. Core, welcome back to the show. How you doing today, bud?
Good. How's it going, guys?
Good, man. Good. So we are talking about the possibility of the Mets moving on from Buck Showalter. Corey just mentioned a bunch of different candidates that could potentially replace him. Is there somebody that Corey maybe forgot to mention that maybe we're not thinking of?
Off the top of my head, no. I probably had those same names come to my mind. Obviously, Council's the worst kept secret, being tied to Stearns. Beltran is the creative one I thought of, just because he didn't really get a fair shot, and it's probably, I feel like if he wants it, it's probably time for him to get that fair shot at being a manager somewhere in baseball. Who knows? Maybe they do, a lame duck year with Buck. I don't think he will. I think he'll want to get his guy in immediately and just kind of get the personnel in place from the get go, just get this ship going in the right direction. But we're going to find out in the next 6 weeks, I would say.
The only reason I can see them doing the lame duck year is because the Mets have kind of said, and we know that there's not a great free agent class out there. So if they really can't make the moves to improve the roster, unless they have a guy that they love and they want to make him part of the rebuild, maybe you just wait until you can really refresh the roster and then match the manager to that. I guess the only reason I could see them just kind of stick with Buck, because at that point, like why it kind of same thing with Boone, like why get rid of him if you can't really make the changes you need to anyway?
Yeah, and if next year is a transitional year, we want to talk about Buck in transitional years. How about his tenure with the Yankees? Not too now it's a couple decades ago, but you know what I mean. The transitional year where all of a sudden the Yankees took off right after Buck left. So we'll see what happens. But that's a good point. That would literally be the one reason I can see him back. In addition to him being a well-respected man, of course, just because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces. Kind of let the dust settle, and then bring in a guy and go from there.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that really is I feel like maybe they might leave it up to Buck, as he's a 70-year-old man with the last year of his contract. Does he really want to manage another year in baseball? And if he does, then maybe they go that route, and if they don't, then obviously they have a search.
Yep, and it'll be interesting. We did put up our poll here. We usually do our preview polls. We always do our preview polls before our shows on Mondays. We did ask, who do you want managing the New York Mets in 2024? 71% of the vote went to Buck. And Beltran and Council were on this list. We also had an other. But people want Buck still, I guess. It's interesting. But yeah, with the connections with David Stearns, Craig Council definitely seems like the likely candidate. How about a little reunion of sorts? Maybe Terry Collins comes back. Would Terry Collins be a fit for this new direction of the Mets?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's in the jackpot back again.
Yeah, I don't think Collins. And the thing with Collins too, it's an old regime, different ownership, different regime. Again, I don't think there's any David Stearns connection there. I like what you're thinking, Rich. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think why he worked so well his first stint with the Mets was it was clearly a rebuilding, and he's good with just getting young guys into the game and kind of helping them develop. We're looking at if we're following the Mets plan, at least what they've said the last couple months, it's a transitional year for 1 year. So is he really going to sign up to be a manager for 1 year? Do the Mets really want to do that, where they just have a revolving door at manager? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I will tell you what, too, on Terry Collins, sometimes you don't realize what you have until he's gone. I'll tell you what, the further we get from the Terry Collins era, the more I actually respect his time here. I thought he did a good job. He had some bad talent on his first few years with the Mets. That was when Alderson first came. Alderson did like a mini rebuild there, getting rid of some of those contracts. When Terry Collins took over, you still had Luis Castillo and Oliver Perez under contract. Granted, I don't think that either of them went into that season in the Major League roster, but they were still under contract with the Mets. So I give Collins a lot of credit. I do like the fiery attitude he would bring into the press conferences, because that kind of mirrored what the fan base feels. And a lot of the criticism Buck gets, in addition to not playing the kids, is in the press conferences, everything's fine, everything's happy, everything's swell. At least Collins mirrored the passion from the fans, because if the fans are angry, chances are Terry Collins is going to have an angry press conference. So I give him a lot of credit and respect for that.
And that's what wins a lot of fans over. You know, you have that that same passion that you hear fans call in and wait 2 hours on WFAN's phone line and to scream at Kay or LaGreca. Fans want to see that from their manager. They want to see that they want to see a manager basically be a liaison between the fans and the organization. And you know, Collins would have been an interesting candidate there, but very unlikely. Now, I'll shout this out before we get into core curriculum here. The Mets AA team. We're talking about the future. We're talking about how Epler killed it in the trade deadline. Their AA team, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, beat the Somerset Patriots last week. They're actually in the Eastern League Championship. They're game 1 tonight against the Erie Seawolves. A lot of good performances. It looks like Tidwell's bringing it today. Acuna has been brilliant during this postseason run thus far. So a shout out to the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, although it hurts me on the inside to know that they beat my Somerset Patriots to get there. But special shout out to them. All righty. I think it is time for core curriculum. You ready for this one, Core? Obviously, you're ready for this. This is your segment. But before Core gets us the questions, let's talk Instagram. Thomas?
Yeah, make sure to give Empire State of Baseball a follow on Instagram at Empire State of Baseball. You also can follow our individual accounts at Corey Favs, at JR Pugs, at Rich J. Rivera, and at T Waspel. The main account, though, is where we'll be posting. Normally, our post game recaps at this point. Probably not so many post game recaps because games don't matter anymore. But Corey still does a great job of putting some funny memes and putting some funny videos together. So I'm sure he'll continue to do that through the postseason. So check us out there.
I promise there'll be one more for everyone. I think we'll do the final game as a final send off of the segment. I think there's going to be one of the Mets as well this weekend. So we'll have fun. I've been doing it all season, Tom, so it's all good. All righty. So more importantly, on Instagram, give Core a follow at _Core. Give him a follow on Twitter /X at @Core_. But more importantly, give him your attention because it's now time for Core Curriculum. Core, what's our first question here?
All right. So Francisco Lindor is one of 3 shortstops in Major League Baseball history to now have multiple seasons of at least 25 doubles, 25 homers, and 25 stolen bases. Can you name the other 2 shortstops?
I don't know if A-Rod has the stolen bases, but I'll say A-Rod.
He only did it 1 year.
What about Jimmy Rollins?
Jimmy Rollins is correct.
Ooh.
Cal Ripken Jr.
Good guess.
No, not Cal Ripken.
What about Honus Wagner?
Nope. He's in this era. We all watched him play.
Troy
Nomar Garcia Parra.
No.
What about Tulowitzki?
Nope.
Trevor Story?
Nope.
25 doubles, 25 homers.
Miguel Tejada.
Oh, I was going to just say it.
Nope.
Oh,
Jeter?
Yes.
Is it
No.
Jeter? No.
Nope. NL East or partially NL East.
Partial. Oh, Jose Reyes.
No.
Oh.
Partial NL East. We said Rollins.
NL East and AL East.
Orlando Cabrera.
Hanley Ramirez.
Hanley Ramirez.
And Ray.
Yeah.
Oh, Corey got them both.
Yeah. There we go.
Corey
The
got 'em
comeback. The comeback.
Isn't
Just
it
like the
nice when Joe doesn't
Comeback.
scream the answer over your guesses here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like the Yankees winning
man.
a series against Arizona, that doesn't matter. Corey just putting up
Look
numbers
at that. Look
in
at that.
irrelevant games.
Playing the job of spoiler. I always forget Hanley Ramirez was a base stealer because in more recent memory, he was like a bigger guy.
Yeah, big boy.
Yeah, I forget he was.
I think he
actually-
won Rookie of the Year the first year he did it
He
too.
might
or-
have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he won
he-
Rookie of the Year, but I think he did it the year after. The next 2 years after he
Awesome.
won Rookie of the Year.
Hanley was like one of those guys, like back in the day, like fantasy baseball. It was like you had to take Pujols 1 and Hanley was like 2 right after. He
Right
was just
there,
that type
probably.
of player.
Yeah.
Cover a lot of categories back in the day. All right, we have another question here. What do we got? Is it another Mets question? Yes, it is. Let's see.
Yeah. So Ronnie Mauricio made his debut a little while ago, and in his debut, he had multiple hits against the Seattle Mariners. Who was the last Mets player to record multiple hits in his debut?
Alonzo.
Nope.
Lastings Millage.
Oh, I was going to say the
No.
same guess.
Nope.
Like, can we get some kind of an error? Because we're just gonna name. Like
In the
Also,
last-
plenty of show to do
in
it.
the last 15 years.
okay.
In the last 50, Kirk Neuenhuis.
No. Great answer. I love Captain.
What a guess!
Had to throw one out there, like a random
A
guy,
crappy immaculate, but what a great guess.
right?
Brandon Nimmo.
No. In his rookie year, he batted 286.
Oh, he actually had a decent rookie year. 286.
Reyes.
No.
Was it
Kind
Conforto?
of a disappointment. Who?
Conforto?
No.
Kind of a disappointment.
Ike Davis.
No.
Yes. Yeah, because he had a good rookie year, and then he tails off after the injury. Rookie
He,
year, last 15.
Let's see. What else can I give you? He's played for 2 other teams, brief stint in the AL East, and then back to the National League.
Omir Santos.
Nope.
Kevin Plawecki on the catcher train.
Nope. What else can I give you? He
He was
was.
a starting pitcher making his debut.
Steven Matz.
Yep, it was
Yes.
Nats.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Thank you, Rich. I remember that game. I remember watching that game. His grandpa was there.
His grandfather was like falling over the railing.
Thank you, Rich, for bringing that up. Because as soon as
I was
he
trying
was
to
starting
go around
pitcher-
that one. So I was like, if I say pitcher, it's going to
Yes.
be a dead giveaway to Corey.
Yes. Yeah. I remember watching that game like it was yesterday, 2015. What a fun season that was. What a fun game that was. But Matz did more with the bat that game than the arm. And he actually pitched well too, but he hit a ton.
Yeah, he
I
was a
forgot
great hitter.
this segment was co-hosted by me and Cornell. Just giving out handsy points. Much deserved, Corey. Though you definitely needed those 3 points.
Clean sweep.
So you're closing in now in third place. I might be the one that went from first to worst here because
Oh,
now you have
man.
10 points to my 12, and Joe still has 15, and Tom still has 16. So at least Joe didn't miss Tom taking advantage of the lead here and missed Joe.
Hey,
so
And even the Athletics are on a 5-game win streak. So anything could happen.
I don't like the no hat. All right, Core. We appreciate your time as always. We're not done with you. I think we have at least one more core curriculum before this whole baseball thing is over. So we will see you in a few weeks' time.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you,
All
Cor,
right,
for coming.
man.
Fun as
Yeah.
always.
Take care. All right, Core, as always, bringing the heat. Corey Favs, though, taking advantage with the
I
3
needed
points. That's
that.
huge for you.
I need that. And it all
Huge.
depends. We'll see what our segments are down the stretch here going through the postseason. But little Corey Favs run. I'm liking it. Listen, Miracle Mets 69. You never know.
Love it.
See what happens.
All right. We'll see. It's still plenty of time. There's still going to be games throughout the course of October. But you can check out a lot of our archive games over on YouTube, right, Corey?
You could go on YouTube. We are airing live now as well on YouTube. So for those of you listening to us there, thank you again. Like, share, and subscribe. Empire State of Baseball on YouTube. You will get to watch the full show, whether live or a repeat. You'll have clips from the show and any shorts from Instagram, such as our short reels or the post-game recaps, will also be found on YouTube. So download and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball on YouTube.
Man, did we lose our steam quick this year because we were rattling off a lot of those River Ave rewinds and Mets minutes at the early stages of the season. Things are exciting. And then I guess once the halfway mark of the season
It
hit,
was so
it was all
deflating
over.
this year. Because the problem with this year, too, was such a deflating year, especially for the Mets. Because by the time the Mets, it was fun going into the deadline. And then it was like a balloon that popped. And even with the Yankees, I don't know what happened with them. Like they weren't in first for a while, but they were still in that wild card. And then it was like each week, it was like another game. And before you knew it, there were 8 games back. It's like, what happened with them, too? So crazy year, deflating year.
Deflating year it was. But there is still an MLB postseason. It will be New Yorkless, but there's still an MLB postseason for us to cover. And even though I said today was the last episode covering the regular season, we still have some show left here for this season 2 of Empire State of Baseball. We're going to have some scheduled guests over the next few weeks. Just trying to juggle which ones are going to appear at certain times, but I do have some commitments for some guests. So, but we'll reveal those on social media. But next week is our real kickoff of postseason. Playoffs start next Tuesday with the wild card rounds. And just like last year, we're going to go through our playoff predictions. Going to go through the full bracket, have a nice post up on Instagram, and then run through it here live on the show next Monday, that being October the 2nd. That is just wild. October the 2nd. We're already going into October now, boys. What the hell? What happened to time?
I can't believe it. October or next week. Can't believe it.
Can't believe it. Thomas is but he's been full pumpkin spice swing since what, like August 16 when Starbucks came out with the.
Absolutely. Like you can't fill me with enough pumpkin.
And I'll tell you what, too, not pumpkin, but if we're going to be on that type of like fruity coffee bandwagon, you know what, beans? I bought beans this past week. I mean, my girlfriend, and blueberry cinnamon crumble beans.
Oh, sounds delightful.
Ooh.
Oh, I ground them up this morning. Oh, they were good. And then the other one I have is Irish cream. That one I'm really looking forward to.
We also are getting into dark beer season. We're getting out of IPA season, which I can't stand.
That sounds like a 3-wick that you just
dessert beers. Bring it on.
I tell you what,
blueberry cinnamon crumble.
Blueberry cinnamon crumble. It was very good.
That sounds like a 3-wick that you just snort at Bath and Body Works and just get judged by everybody there.
And I'll tell you what,
I have some blueberry pancake beer downstairs. I need to bust out from source.
You know what? ESB, we're gonna have a special ESB one day, Empire State of Brews, and just everyone come on, grab some brews, and do a little bit of a beer review. Maybe that'll be a special off-season episode we could do, like a holiday. Middle of January, nothing's going on special.
Hell yeah, I like the sound of that. Hell, we can start as soon as next week. We've got no New York teams to cover anymore unless things become official with certain moves. But yes, postseason baseball kicks off next week, so we're going to get into all of that over the next few weeks' time. Probably expect these episodes to be a little shorter. You know, obviously we're trying to drag out this, but we're going to be more expecting to do like 45-minute shows over the next few weeks. A little less stuff to cover, a little less segmented. So just be on the lookout for our episodes and the concise time on it. But let's wrap things up here, Thomas. Why not? Any special thank yous, words of wisdom you got for the faithful here?
No, just, we're waiting to hear back from the NFL on the petition about what was done
of course
to my team yesterday. So, I'll report back next week on what Raj tells me.
Yeah, and listen, I'm just going to give a shout out to our co-host Joe and his wife Chrissy. I know they're spending time together this evening, so we love you, thinking about you, and look forward to having our foursome back next week, October 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, we love you, Joe and Chrissy, thinking about you a lot, and we look forward to having Joe back here on the show, hopefully for next Monday's show, October the 2nd, and hopefully we'll have you guys all back here as well, so thank you for tuning in. I know it's tough listening into a baseball show right now with the two New York teams. I've been out of it for months. Obviously, we're in the middle of a bad football season for those New York teams as well. But for those of you who tuned in today, we thank you so much. Core, thank you so much for joining us again. Talk a little Mets, get some core curriculum questions out there. And one more final shout out to our guy, Chooch, for his final Chooch's pick of the week. So good luck to Chooch. It's either he's going to be 7-5, 9-5, or 7-7. We're going to find out in just a week's time. But until then, we will see you all here next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Twitch, Twitter, X, YouTube. Take care.